Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Join us for the 6th Pan-African Pyramid Global Awards 2023 and 10th Anniversary Bonfire Dinner, recognizing and awarding our forefathers in Pan-Africanism who selflessly fought and defended the rights and freedoms of the Black race globally. Happening on the 26th August 2023 at Fairway Hotel from 4 p.m. till late. Dress code is strictly traditional African wear. Come book your dinner card now at table for 8 for 3 million, platinum 1 million, gold 500,000, silver 250,000, bronze 100,000. For inquiries, call 0757 342 317 or 0782 342 317. Powered by the Spy Uganda, Detective Uganda, Fairway Hotel, NBS TV, the Pan-African Pyramid. Africa, don't agonize, organize.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you here at Fairway, those of you who are physically here and those of you who are following us on our various platforms online. Ladies and gentlemen, in May this year, 2023, President Museveni signed into law the Anti-homosexuality Act. It was a bill, now it is an act, therefore it means it is what? It's a law that can be enforced. That law, or the act, is meant to curtail the LGBTQ activities in Uganda. Now, in retaliation, World Bank has suspended any further funding for projects in Uganda, and they are citing human rights violations from the recent enactment of the same, that law. The statement from the World Bank actually says further funding is being frozen until authorities in Uganda provide adequate policy to protect minorities, including the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and other groups. That is their argument. They think that by passing this law, you are suppressing other people's rights. But ladies and gentlemen, remember that Uganda and Africa as a whole has its own values, traditions, and cultures. When I leave Africa and I go to Europe or America, I go there on their terms. First of all, they want me to get a visa, and I must have a passport. Without them, you cannot go. So I go on their terms. When Europeans and Americans want to come to Africa, they don't need a visa. They don't need a visa. It is you who needs a visa. So automatically, it is showing that you actually need them more than they did. They do need you. Now, as African families, our cultures and traditions and norms are different from the rest of the world. We are different. We are totally different. But now somebody is telling you that for them to give you their money, you must forget about your cultures, forget about your traditions, forget about your norms, if you want their money. But the traditions of Americans, if they have, and the cultures, for them, they are intact if they have them. No African can dictate that Americans, you must behave like this. So one asks themselves, why should now America or the white man be the one to dictate how I should live in my own world? There is something that we believe in, and I preserve it and respect it. You believe that it is okay a man to go with a man. We don't believe so. You believe that it's okay a woman to go with a woman. We don't believe so. Why do you want to force us into what you believe in? Now, when you say that these are human rights and therefore you must respect human rights, Comrade Money-Rugarama is a lawyer. And also have a very good upcoming young lawyer here, Mr. Reith. Now, nature has already dictated that a man must be with a woman and vice versa. When a man goes with a man, does that become a law, Mr. Rugarama, when I stop you? if I stop you, am I really contravening any law? Then tomorrow, if Mr. Eric Sakwa wants to have a cup of human blood, Mr. Eric Sakwa, I'm giving an example. You are saying it is his right. I should allow him. If Mr. Eric Sakwa, his life depends on other people's blood, I should allow him. Kill somebody, drink his blood. That is his life. Don't worry about it. That's what they are saying. Don't worry about it. It is his life. That's how he survives. Aye. So when I stop Mr. Eric Sakwa from doing that, I am violating Mr. Sakwa's right. What about the right of the one who is killing to drink his blood? So, if you want us to accept homosexuality, what about the rights of the children whose rights are being violated? What about it? And anyway, if America, you want to be a champion of democracy, how come you yourself, you still occupy somebody's land in Guantanamo Bay? What type of ice cream do you manufacture in Guantanamo Bay? If you want to respect their human rights and sovereignty and so on. So, clearly, I'm in this chair as a speaker. I don't want to show side, but sometimes there are some issues whereby you must have a stand. There are some issues where you must show that I stand here. Uganda is a sovereign country. They sat in the parliament and made laws that all of us actually supported the parliament. The parliament is a representation of the people of Uganda. The people of Uganda have made it clear that this is a no-go area for us here. Now, you, World Bank, EU, and America, you want to overturn the will of the people of Uganda by saying, if you don't allow this, we are stopping this aid. Now, when you stop, are you also respecting the human rights? Because it is my right to say, this one I will take, this one I will not take. When you come and force me that you must take it, Mr. Rugarama, are you also respecting the human rights? Because I have a right to choose what works for me. I don't believe that that's the democracy these cowboys have been pretending to be championing in the world. Because actually you are not even, you yourself, you are not living by what you are teaching others. If you believe democracy, the majority must decide what they want. That's what the people of Uganda have decided. So why should you use money to overturn the will of the people? We are not saying that you cannot have an LGBTQI person in America. No. This law is for Uganda and Ugandans. If you want it, you can have it. That's it. There's no problem. But once you are here in Uganda, that's the law. So I don't understand when someone says respect human rights, respect democracy, and when we exercise ours, that is not democracy. It is yours that you are going to force us that we should consider as democracy. I believe that that is wrong in my opinion. But I am not a debater. Comrade Money-Rugarama will be the first panelist on the debate on this topic, and it is very simple. We want to hear your views, Comrade Money-Rugarama, on the World Bank sanctions against Uganda over the recently passed LGBTQ Act, or the Anti-homosexuality Act, which the President signed into law in May.
Thank you so much, Speaker, sir.
The audience is allowed to interject at 10 minutes. Your interjection must be brief. Either you are inquiring, you have not understood, or you would like to give him information. Point of inquiry, point of order, point of information. I allow those three. But after 10 minutes into his time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Speaker. Good evening to you all, comrades. Topic has already been read to us. Permit me dive into the subject directly. Mr. Speaker, the World Bank was established in 1944. That was immediately after the World War II. And the purpose for this particular bank was inter alia to redevelop or rebuild the badly damaged Europe and Japan. I wish that my audience can listen very attentively because these introductory remarks are very critical.
I'm sure they are very attentive.
The World Bank was established in 1944, and it was established mainly by America with a few other partners, and the purpose of establishing this bank was to rebuild Europe and Japan, which in the estimation of the framers and establishers of this bank had been badly damaged by the war. Membership is estimated that every country with membership at the UN is actually a member of the World Bank. Mr. Speaker, sir, the goals of this bank are: 1, to end extreme poverty. 2, to promote shared prosperity in a sustainable manner. The functions of this bank are to advise the private sector and the public sector in areas of health, security, education, and any other areas in developing economies. I said, I want us to move together. The controlling arm in this particular World Bank is said to be that all members of the World Bank have got a controlling arm in the same bank. Now don't ask me whether Uganda, which is a member, was consulted before they cut off the future loans which were coming to Uganda simply because of this registration. That's a debate when we go into it. But that's what is on paper, that all members have got a controlling arm in this particular bank. Mr. Speaker, sir, the World Bank, as far as the developing economies are concerned, in the view of the fact that we are all members, has been borrowing money at the interest rate of between 8 and 10%. It is also on record that those other countries for whom the bank was established, i.e. Europe and Japan, who in majority of the cases actually don't need this money, have been borrowing the same money at an average interest rate of between 3 to 5. Mr. Speaker,
so they borrow Africa.
They lend Africa at between 8 and 10%, and they lend to Europe and selected few countries in Asia at between 3 and 5%. Food for thought when we move into debate. I'm provoking you.
But they are saying they promote democracy and equity.
That's another debate, a huge one at that.
Equity.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is my submission that this World Bank is not World Bank in the real sense of the word, but it is a Washington Bank, because not only is it situated there, but also United States of America has got well over 60% controlling arm. You will never be the executive director of the World Bank unless you are an American. You will never take any fiscal policy unless and until you are an American. You cannot make any decisions apart from the fact that those decisions have been blessed by the American government. It is also on record that this was nothing but the establishment of the Bretton Woods institutions, whereby the difference between IMF and World Bank is the similarity. The World Bank is the cause for Africa to have regressed in the 1980s when majority Africa had become an economy that was best described as export-led other than import-led, due to the policies introduced by the World Bank with her sister IMF of devaluation and dollarization. We experienced a nosedive that countries like Uganda, which were manufacturing Naitiru and other fabrics and exporting, countries like Nigeria, which were at a point of exporting processed products to outside countries, were driven into becoming import-led economies, because we were no longer exporting, but we were told that we are better off if we could import. And the policy was framed by the World Bank and IMF and thrown down to the developing countries, which had carved a pathway to economic recovery, and also making sure that we get out of the shackles of the economic slavery. Under the gaze of democracy and human rights, the World Bank is nothing but a political undermining tool. They come up with all sorts of excuses that your human rights record must be in tandem with the values of the World Bank, but when in actual sense, they want to make sure that these policies that are framed in World Bank code rooms are implemented, and should they not be implemented, and you are described as a dictator, wanting to go out of the line of the policies of the World Bank and IMF, they will lead all sorts of things, including coups, as it is known, for instance, that all the countries which have endeavored and tried to sabotage the economic policies of the World Bank and IMF, the leaders have either been assassinated, or the coups, if they are lenient, there have been coups in their respective countries. And I can go on and on and on, because we very well know.
Give us an example of such coups.
Patrice Lumumba, for instance, in DRC, was assassinated and later on eliminated because he questioned how the raw materials of DRC or Congo then were being utilized. A combination of Belgium and the CIA eliminated him. In the country called Tanzania just recently, when Dr. Pombe Magufuli indicated that he had the capacity not to move out of his country, but he would carry out major infrastructure development, including roads, bridges, hospitals, health, etc. It is claimed that he died of COVID-19, heart attack related complications, but the fly on the wall tells me and tells all those who have got searching eyes that that was not the case. The World Bank is an intelligence tool to monitor how our economies, or the African economies and those emerging economies, are working, because they are the ones who give the money. They will know how much money is in your economy, and they will also know how your development trajectory is outlaid. They will know the major roads you are going to put up. They will know and sabotage any activity that is going to get your people out of abject poverty. Contrary to what they were set out to do, they will do the opposite, and they have been doing the opposite. For if not, how do you explain that from 1944, assuming that we are averagely 60 years African continent, as far as regaining independence is concerned, and we have not gotten any breakthrough. The amount of monies we have picked from World Bank, the kind of policies we have consumed from International Monetary Fund, if Africa was designed through these Bretton Woods institutions to benefit and develop, would be even greater than the people who initiated the World Bank and IMF.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament.
I want to be very clear that both World Bank and Uganda need each other.
Yes, that is true.
We are aware that the bilateral relations between Washington, D.C. and Kampala went sour on Tuesday. After it emerged that World Bank would hold new lending to the Ugandan government over the anti-gay law that was recently passed. I want to be categorical in the presentation that World Bank claims that the anti-gay law contradicts World Bank's values of inclusion of everybody, irrespective of race, gender, or sexual orientation. Now, it is known, Mr. Speaker, that in Africa, over 30 countries have criminalized homosexuality. Over 30. And as you put it very clearly in your introductory remark, Mr. Speaker, we have our values as Africans. We are very much aware that World Bank is Uganda's top multilateral lender and offers global grants that fund large-scale projects and activities. It promotes long-term economic development and poverty reduction by providing technical and financial support to help less developed countries to implement reforms or projects such as building schools or maybe engaging in education, providing water and electricity, fighting disease, environmental protection, to mention, there are so many. Now, we appreciate that intervention, that is strategic intervention that the World Bank brings on board. But again, to tie us in a corner that if we are giving you money, you must accept a certain culture, which is not commensurate with the African tradition.
That's where the problem is.
That is where there is a problem. And it is upon us to accept the money, and your buttocks are ruined totally beyond repair, or you leave it and we continue.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament.
Now, there are three words I want us to be very, very keen about. That is autocracy, bureaucracy, and democracy. In other words, autocracy is when one person is entrusted with full grip on power. So this one individual should be used to engineer anything in that society. The second word is bureaucracy. For example, in our country here in Uganda, we elect MPs. But the role of an MP is subject to state officials. For example, you comrades, you a former RDC. An RDC in our country has more powers than an elected member of parliament. Meaning in bureaucracy, the people elected by the state are more important in decision making rather than the people elected by the masses. Now
how does World Bank connect?
So if the gentleman, if the lady who is given the mandate to control us, like in Uganda, our president is given the mandate because that's where autocracy works. He is the one given the power to control the rest of us. They give him all the funding he needs. And if in case he's not following through with the procedures and the interests of those who give him the money, they will now start bringing in sanctions to make sure they stop him from continuing his autocracy. And why are they sanctioning him? So that the masses will be, depleted in resources, depleted in the things they need in their own lives. Because those sanctions block us from getting things from out of Uganda into Uganda so that we consume them. All the products, even exporting our own products. And that affects the masses. It's not going to affect the president in his own right. It affects the masses. So now the masses will rise up in big numbers. All these African countries that have had sanctions, the end result is that the masses will have to rise up in enormous numbers to reject the autocratic kind of leadership that is in the country. But that is engineered through those who give him funds. Very soon you will see the very people who are engineering this to happen, giving money to the opposition, so that the opposition will empower the masses, go riot, go do this, so that the autocratic government will be put out of position. The third word is democracy. Now, the whole game is played between autocracy and bureaucracy, but they promote democracy.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament.
I want to tell you, comrades, that countries that have embraced economic vulnerability have suffered with the imperialist financial institutions, and they will continue to suffer if they do not break these chains. One would be asking whether World Bank is sanctioning all countries that have criminalized LGBTQ. That is not the case. I want to tell you that very many countries have not been sanctioned. There are even countries in Europe that are criminalizing LGBT, and they have not been sanctioned. You have Hungary, it is in Europe. There is Grenada, there is Guyana, Dominica, Barbados, the United Arab Emirates. Now, most painfully, just to ignite dissatisfaction, if we can draw back to 1971, Uganda, the president then was Field Marshal Idi Amin Dada, gave aid, development aid to United Arab Emirates in 1971, when the second deputy prime minister, now Moses Ali, was minister of finance then. It is quite astounding that approximately just 52 years ago, Uganda is now crying over sanctions from World Bank. Talking about sanctions, I am very certain that many countries have undergone economic sanctions, and others that have fallen victims of America's cold conceived diplomacy and their quest for what they call democracy. If the nomenclature, anyway, if the nomenclature best suits the occasion, and these countries have survived. An apparatchik in a political manner is that excessive obeying to anything. They say this, you do. They say this, you do, without considering your own position.
Disobedient.
Now, the pessimism lies in the fact that we may not very much be able to redirect World Bank. But now the optimism lies in the reality that we all can redirect, reshape, revamp Uganda. Now quickly, if I can demystify on what is the problem, so that we all ponder how best we can overcome and proceed. Point number one. Quickly, Mr. Speaker. I do not want us to discuss problems without looking at the other side of what do we do, because ideally I believe that is the most important. Number one, we cannot continue to import what we produce, well knowing that even the little that we are exporting is not at international standards and it does not give us the energies to globally compete. Secondly, this World Bank sanction must now call us to the notion and attention for all of us to elucidate what happens when we are suffocated by debt and can no longer borrow. Yes, there is a sanction, but I want you to ask yourself that in the event that we have been suffocated by debts and we can no longer borrow, leave the sanction alone, what do we do as a country? I think this is great fortuity for Uganda to now discuss how we attain a self-sufficient, sustainable economy without the so much uncalled for begging and borrowing. I have said it before. And without fear, I want to say it again. That we either do not have planners in this country, or those that we have are planning in the backward direction. Because now, if you look at our government expenditure vis-a-vis our incomes, why would a country rated third world have an abnormally huge parliament with a composition of over 557 seats? MPs from a third world country are earning higher than MPs from European Union states. Quick mathematics. If every MP, if we cut off 5 million shillings from what they earn, in a month, Uganda would save 2.5 billion shillings. In a month. Now, in a year, we would save closely 30 billion. I believe that would do so much for our economy.
I thank you.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament.
Join us for the 6th Pan-African Pyramid Global Awards 2023 and 10th Anniversary Bonfire Dinner recognizing and awarding our forefathers in Pan-Africanism who selflessly fought and defended the rights and freedoms of the black race globally. Happening on the 26th August 2023 at Fairway Hotel from 4 p.m. till late. Dress code is strictly traditional African wear. Come book your dinner card now at table for 8 for 3 million, platinum 1 million, gold 500,000, silver 250,000, bronze 100,000. For inquiries, call 0757 342 317 or 0782 342 317. Powered by the Spy Uganda, Detective Uganda, Fairway Hotel, NBS TV, the Pan-African Pyramid. Africa, don't agonize, organize.
Hello, my name is Maponga J from Farmers of Thought. I'll be in Kampala for the Pan-African Pyramid Global Awards 2023 10th Anniversary Bonfire, right in Kampala at the Fairway Hotel. I'll tell you all about Africa, what we need to do to harness the future that is promising, and how do we deal with the bottlenecks that are stifling our development as a continent. And I'll be very, very excited, as I am already, to be part of this beautiful, beautiful organization as we celebrate the history of Africa and rekindle the hope within us to ownership of our own economy and transforming our history. You know, we are dealing with the past, transforming the present, and creating a better future for our children. See you there in Kampala.
Hello to Uganda, the pearl of Africa. I'm Paul Cormac Mukalazi Flynn, a proud member of the Ugandan diaspora. I'm Ugandan-Irish, born in Germany, founder of the Grow Foundation and a member of the United Nations Peacekeeping Mission to East Africa. I'm really proud to confirm that I will be in Kampala for the 6th Pan-African Pyramid Global Awards and the 10th Anniversary Bonfire Dinner on August 26th this year at the Fairway Hotel. Join me. Let's discuss how to bring wealth and prosperity to Uganda and all of Africa. Let's not agonize, organize. See you there.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament.
The World Bank was framed to do the revamping of the economies after their dilapidation of the effects of the World War II, but particularly after the detonation of atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So it was an economic tool to revamp economies. Started with 38 member states, but as we talk, there are over 189. And its formation and the organs have been well elaborated by colleagues. I want to be clear, and I'm very happy with this move. It is not to do with LGBTQ+. No. This is a wake-up call to Uganda, especially with the planners and the economists. How do we survive if we are not borrowing?
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament.
Facts have it, statistics have it. The countries that receive the most aid are the ones that are not progressing in Africa. Let me give you examples. One, South Sudan, the country I come from, it depends more on relief aid. We go to Sudan itself. Let's say the whole Sudan in general, both north and south. They depend mostly on foreign aid. But what is happening there? Wars. What is happening there? Starvation. What is happening there?
Poverty.
Famine.
Poverty.
Poverty and all those things. Let's move to Democratic Republic of Congo. Ever since the United Nations came in, that was in the 1960s, till today, it has been dependent on foreign aid. What's happening there? A lot of poverty and no progress is going on there. We move on. Let's go to Central African Republic. You very well know what is happening right now. For the past 4 years, what is happening in Central African Republic? Chad, it is actually number 11 among the 20 topmost countries that depend on foreign aid. You very well know what's happening in Chad, being the fact that it's in a region that is so distable. That is that Central African region. We have Sudan, Congo, South Sudan. We have Central African Republic. So before we even jump to anger, like we said it about the sanctions, let's first analyze, where do we benefit from this foreign aid? What do we benefit? This foreign aid comes with only strings attached to it. That is the actual, if we are to talk of quid pro quo, then the only quid pro quo we have is we give honesty, they bring us back desolation. Just like I said it at first. They create desolation and call it peace. So what they will give you, they give you that little money. What will the money do? The money is going to make your citizens lazy. I tell you, South Sudan is where, the country I come from. In Kenya, we have about 350,000 people living in refugee camps. These people are not studying, they are not going to school, they are not working. They depend on food that is being brought by the United Nations.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament.
I pity for the World Bank because it has reached at its apex of exit. Like, World Bank at the moment should be looking at how it could be reducing the interest rate on loans given to African countries, because they have forgotten one thing. Russia and BRICS nations are bringing the alternative bank for the World Bank, which is going to be World Development Bank. So, World Bank coming out and conspiring Uganda, saying that they are not going to borrow Uganda. Actually, it is, I don't know how I can term it, but they are losing the mark. In fact, they are reaching at the exit. And I want to inform fellow Ugandans that nothing will happen to us.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament.
The truth here, this is economic war. This is economic war. It has nothing to do with these homosexual things. It is economic war between America, the European Union, which is partners of America, and China and Russia over Africa. The truth here is, our president has opened up to the East. A few weeks ago, they were in Russia signing very serious documents. The American will not sleep. The European will not sleep. They will attack him. Uganda has been partnering with the West and benefiting from the West, while Russia, China, was out of business with the Uganda and the Africa at large. Because this is economic war between capitalism and socialists. So you begin to see that the Russians, the socialists, the Chinese, They have been given open door to come here as investors. And they are beating the American off business. Because these people are gifted in business. They are putting a lot of millions of dollars into the government of Africa. They're almost buying the whole Africa. Now this is a battle of economic war. The problem here is the economic war of the Bazungu. They don't fight in their country. They fight it in Africa.
They are taking the war to Africa.
They bring the war to Africa. Because Africa is the mother of the earth and has all the minerals. And the economic war is fought over the minerals.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament.
The task ahead of us will never ever be greater than the power within us. A mankind is like a computer. Your intelligence must be monitored. Africa is a blessed country, but with little understanding. Africa to develop, we must come out with our own models of development. Benchmarking here and there won't help Africa. I'm very happy America is trying to prove to us that we cannot reason and we have nothing to do with our development. One, when you look at our generation, America and the other organisms, they have brought many programs in order to make sure Africa cannot prosper. If you use it of being a beggar, you'll never ever try to think to build yourself. They have come with different programs to make sure Africa don't have human labor. The moment you don't have human labor, then you are out. They are saying Africa, we are overpopulated. They will tell you Uganda is one of the having a generation that is increasing rapidly. But we need labor in a line of population. One, the moment you have a productive human labor, then that's the way to go. So for me, when I look at the World Bank saying we're not going to support you because you support LGBTQ, I like it. They should not give us their money because we need it. We need to start with evaluating ourselves individually. The moment we evaluate ourselves individually, then we are going to have a contribution to this country, Uganda and Africa. Look here, we have fertile soils, we have good climate, but our homes, our parents are suffering without food. The moment they know you are in Kampala, you are in a town, people in a village, they will call you for salt, sugar. And that's why Africans, we are dying at a terrible speed, especially women. From here, the girlfriend will call me, I need something to eat. You know, my mother, she's going to call me, I need something to eat. But I have my grandfather too, I must take care. At the end, a man, I cannot sustain my life up to 70 years. With time, I must die. What do we need? As a generation, we must work extra hard. Advise our parents not to look at the issue of religion, which was the primary cause of the poor performance of Africa. Look, when they say you subscribe to Roman Catholic Church, you subscribe to Roman Catholic Church and you are enforced. The moment you go for baptization, then you are a full member. You must pay a tax by force. The moment you give out land, the land of your churches, they don't belong to you. They belong to
Rome.
In Rome, they don't have any poor person. And you are here to feed them. They are like our girlfriends who are not working. When you look at the best ratio, look, we are dealing with statistics. When you look at most ladies, they deal with simple life. And living a simple life, they don't die. Look, it is very difficult for a king or a kabaka to die at the early age unless he's assassinated. Why? Everything is on simple, you know. So,
the subjects are providing.
Subjects are providing. What we need as Africa is to make sure we modernize our societies. The moment we modernize our societies, nobody's begging. And for this case, some people must die. Call it elimination. Because if you have to come with a development, because some people are still rigid. Me, if you say I should not believe in this, then you are out. You understand? It is called elimination. When you go to China, they have strict laws. Anything that is not in line with the development of China, you are out. And you are not supposed even to produce if you cannot reason. When you are not in a position to reason, you must suspect your child not to reason. When you produce a child in Kampala, at almost 6 months, the child is almost talking. But in a village, a child can even take 5 years, man, speaking. When you go to a village, you ask somebody, what's this? The man knows it is a bottle, but he cannot tell you. But somebody in town will tell it's a bottle. Oh, I don't know. What's it? So we as Africans, let us sit down, we evaluate whatever we are doing. When you look at our leaders, you find somebody is an MP, but maybe he's a senior six lever. He knows little or nothing about planning, but he's the chairperson of the planning committee of this country, Uganda. And he's getting a lot of money to go to America for benchmarking. What do you expect from that?
Do you have one you can mention?
Well, I'm going to give you an example of our minister for national guidance.
Don't mention.
No, I should mention.
Don't mention.
Okay, it's okay.
Don't mention, please.
Okay. Let us leave it at that.
They are not here to defend themselves.
Okay. But what we are discussing is one. If our country is to develop, we must have planners and implementers of whatever we are planning. Not a mere getting somebody in position because you're a minister in charge of academics, in charge of what? So it's you are alpha and omega for this country.
Thank you.
Then our country may not prosper. I wish you the best. Thank you so much. Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, comrade. Mr.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament.
There is an American called Mr. Stanley Kubrick. He said, great nations have always acted like gangsters, and small nations act like prostitutes. Uganda has just refused to prostitute itself into homosexuality, and that's why it is being punished. But there are small things we can do. For example, we can reduce, like the other speaker said, we have some money. It may not be enough, but it's there. If we reduce the size of cabinet, the size of MPs, size of the districts, actually corruption, we follow corruption. We have many institutions that fight corruption. The problem is we don't punish corruption. We even charge people in courts, but they are never punished. So you can still knowing I will take the courts and lawyers into a merry-go-round, and finally they won't even charge me anyway after 5 years. So Uganda doesn't punish corruption at all. That's why it has refused to go away.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament.
I've had a lot of history in this room today. The reason why we don't develop is because we speak about 1900. Have you ever heard the US Congress speaking history? It speaks what should we do. What should we do should be the thing we are debating today. Yes, they took their money. What was that money doing? Nothing or little. Because few individuals were benefiting. So we are discussing nothing in something. So in that nutshell, I want to congratulate the Pan-African Pyramid for the mantle it took when it was the bill was coming to Parliament, the fight we took to Parliament, and then we delivered. After delivering that, we knew that the World Bank will do the same and other things are still coming. And if these other things are still coming, are we ready? I want to tell you that the president and other people in charge were ready when they were taking the decision, if they are wise enough. So worry less, but let us ask our legislators to start by cutting the budgets, by doing things that will uplift us more higher. For example, let us tell the Electoral Commission, why do you need 1 trillion to conduct an election? For what? Let's cut the budget. Let's enforce that. Let's make the young people to own their economy. Because young people are 75%. They are the highest taxpayers in this country. Let us give they are innovators. Let's give them enough money. Let's give them enough knowledge.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate.
There was a comment. Let me start with the final comment here about history, that this audience has been talking a lot of history. History is very important. There is no progressive, intelligent, and worthy talking about academy concerned with development that does not teach history. I have been to Asia, so many countries in Asia, be it Singapore, be it Malaysia, China, all of them, they emphasize history. It is what kind of history you teach and how do you teach it, with what in mind. I want to believe that if history was very useless, Because you see, you must appreciate where you have come from in order for you to know where you are and where you are going. There is actually history for everything. There is history for in biology, you must get history. In economics, you must get history. So history is very, very, very critical. Don't take it lightly. Mr. Speaker, there is this element of my young brother here. He said quite a lot, and I want to quickly go through it. This is my son, Nkwanga, I think. Nkwanga is the name? Nkwanga, yes. Yeah, he talked about World Bank. No, let me begin with World Bank. You see, World Bank, one of the reasons as to why World Bank was created was to eradicate poverty. It is in their goals. And they are not saying alleviate, no, eradicate poverty. Since 1944, how many years now down the road? Question is, has poverty been eradicated? Instead, it has been perpetuated even deeper.
By the World
So
Bank.
do we, yes, exactly. So do we actually need World Bank?
We need to discuss whether we
There
need
was planners, there was, Nkwang also talked about the planners, that we have planners in Uganda, and he brought it in relation with the big size of parliament. Yeah, you see, I must counsel you, our dear young brains and upcoming serious academicians, that you see, running a government is not a simple thing. Yeah, we have got elements of compromise. And it may be wrong because you remember that even in Chama Mapinduzi, during the time of Julius Mwalimu Nyerere, there was the concept of an equivalent of like Mayumba Kumi, you know, whereby it scored in that it brought all the Tanzanians to be one, because you would know, if I asked you, the successive presidents of Tanzania, their religion, their tribes, that was lost. And he managed to kill tribe, clan, in favor of the nation. But at the same time, he considered later that actually this concept of equivalent of Mayumba Kumi was a disaster. It didn't develop, economically speaking, China. So, this says governance and having patronage, these are politics of patronage. We can do away with it progressively, but in the meantime, in order to manage some countries, such as ours, certain things must happen. They may not necessarily be correct, but they happen. Yes. Then there was the element of corruption. My sister, Dr. Arkana Chuhombori, talking about corruption, brings it very vividly and says, look, who is actually corrupt? Yes, we are not saying, because it is estimated by Africa Development Bank and actually World Bank, that averagely, Africa loses well over $50 billion. But let me tell you, French West Africa alone loses $500 billion going to France, being stolen, and it goes to France out of the Pact for Continuation of Colonization. Now, who is actually more corrupt? This is if we were talking about competition of corruption. So we have some of these things we have to digest them. Then there is the issue of balance of trade. Yeah, when you want to get deep into balance of trade, dear comrades, issues to do with the imbalance of trade, you have got to look at what creates the disproportionately high negative balance of trade between Uganda and between Africa and the rest of the world. Very simple. It's just because the trading patterns are unfavorable. We are into raw materials, whereas for them they are into high-end finished products. We need to change that. I talked about here, you remember, that by 1980s, mid there, Africa, generally speaking, was export-led economy vis-a-vis import-led economy. But the World Bank, which we are talking about here, and IMF introduced concepts like devaluation, digitalization, and these ones ultimately catapulted Africa into import-led economy as opposed to export-led economy. So when there was a proposal from the audience that we need to look at export-led economy as the best alternative for Africa, I also recommend you to read a paper authored by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, and the chairman of the patron of the Pan-African movement here in Uganda and also globally, about the 11 bottlenecks of Africa's development. It's a very nice paper. It was presented in South Africa in 2010. You look it up. It's very good. And you will see why we are where we are. Then also pick copies. Honorable Irumba here and myself, I think, can avail these young comrades this. You pick the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Act and look at it and see what we propose and where we are currently. Because some of the things we are talking about here are actually already answered. Like we are talking about Africa losing well over 100 million to and above $1 million in exchange rate, because the Bretton Woods institutions introduced the dollar as the global currency. Now, when they did that, it means that for us, because of the low levels of intra-trade within Africa, which is well below 15%, and majority of our money actually is lost in trying to exchange our local currency so that we validate ourselves in business terms against the dollar. So we lose a lot of money in that. But now we have got a Pan-African payment mechanism, and we are working with the Chinese. There is a partnership between Africa Continental Free Trade Area and African Union, and particularly Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and we have solved this problem. So I want to finalize, Mr. Speaker, sir, why borrow? Why borrow? You're just going to go back and look at the book which I recommended, The Confessions of the Economic Hitman. Actually, we don't borrow because we want to borrow. Majority of these loans, stale, dysfunctional, which we can't pay, not on time, not ever, they are forced on us. And when you refuse them, the repercussions are there. The work of the so-called World Bank advisors in our respective countries is make sure that we get these loans, which we shall fail to pay. And when we fail to pay them, then they will continuously be taking from us. Sometimes these concessions which we give in minerals is because of what we have signed as a consequence of the policies of the Bretton Woods institutions. Now, finally, you realize that majority of the countries actually which failed to pay some of these loans, somehow we have seen some of the examples, because we have countries. Ask yourself, for instance, why Libya was invaded. Was it on account of poor democracy? What do they call democracy? You see, at the end of the day, they say that China is not democratic. Who says? These so-called Western imperialists. But who said, who examined, marked them and graded and said the Western democracy is the impeccable and the world standard democracy? Nobody. So us having our own organic democracy and going by it is the most important. How do we get there? It is work in progress. The problem we have, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude on this, is that we are progressively getting a high degree of intellectuals who are extremely dishonest.